Hello, everyone. You're listening to Dynamic Destiny Radio on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm Coach Pete, coming to you live from New York City. Each first and third Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, will help you get unstuck and keep moving forward toward your destiny. You can hear the show on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, and my website, petecoaching.com. Hey, today we're going to jump right into it because I'm excited to have a special guest on my show today, Jonathan Flores. I first met Jonathan through our church. It's called Church of the City in Manhattan. The website's church.nyc. Love this place. The preaching's fantastic, and you're sure to get a better understanding of how much God loves you. So I encourage you to check that out, church.nyc. We broadcast internet. During the pandemic, we broadcast services on the internet. Jonathan and I developed kind of like a coaching relationship over time, and we check in with each other to track progress and to share insights and wisdom on how to stay productive. And on our last call, Jonathan has this idea. He goes, hey, other people could really benefit from this call. Can we record it? And I said, hey, I'll do you one better. Let's broadcast it on Dynamic Destiny Radio Show. I had an episode coming up this week. So here we are. Jonathan is a native of Dallas, Texas, but now lives in New York City for almost a decade. He's an avid book reader, writer, actor, real estate agent, and accomplished hand model. Just like George Costanza. I want to hear about this. He's currently writing scripts and sketch comedy. And I'll tell you, one of the things I so appreciate about Jonathan is he has a huge heart for people. And he also is like really gifted in his ability to rapidly connect with people and get in touch with their emotions and the concerns of people in life. And everybody comes away from meeting Jonathan like feeling loved. And he loves to encourage people as well. So please join me in welcoming Jonathan Flores. Yay! Welcome,
Thank
Jonathan.
you, Coach Pete. What an introduction.
So, hey, hand model. I'm sure hand modeling is not your primary source of income. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes. So years ago in Dallas, I grew up there. I think this was, I don't even know. It was 10 years ago, more than 10. I can't remember. But I'd done a lot of production assistant work and had this casting, a friend that was in casting. They started their own company in Dallas called Get Real Agency. I think I'm still with them down there. But she called and said, hey, we need Hispanic hands. And I thought, I can do that. So
I'll try.
Yeah, I'll try. So literally she had me take photos of my hands, and they just were can you see that? What they wanted.
They look Hispanic to me.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a good base tan, and it was so fun. And I just thought, man, this is so great. So I worked with, food industry with 3 restaurants. One's Taco Bueno, and that was a fun one because they just brought in all this food and they wanted you to, like you're prepping the food, and so that was fun. That was in their stores. And then Mr. Gaddy's, which is they're based out of Austin. It's a pizza place. I did some of that. And then the other one was, what was the other one? Mr. Gaddy's. I forget. Oh, Schlotsky's. Have you heard of that sandwich shop?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was that.
So did you have to like eat the food too, or just a hand?
I never ate it because they paint it. You can't eat the food, unfortunately. Although they had some snacks for me, but it's that's all dolled up
fake.
and they drop water on it. They paint, so looks very nice. They have about 10 sandwiches lined up. So it was really yeah.
So next time, listeners, next time you see a pair of hands on TV, know that there is a model behind those hands.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Unsung hero. Yeah.
So Jonathan, basically you've done a lot of different things in the entertainment industry. You're also a real estate agent. Yes. Currently in New York, but I'm looking through that window and that sure doesn't look like New York to me. Where are you holding up during the pandemic here?
I'm in sunny Florida. I'm down here just north of Miami. It's called Jupiter. I guess it's in Hobe Sound is the county, or Hobe Sound is on the address, I know. But Jupiter Island out here was so, um, I guess fortuitous, but I'd say blessed, because I am, it's a miracle I am a Christian, but I've had the opportunity to come out here with some friends from the city. We drove down and kind of this whole thing came together last minute, but so thankful to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to going back to New York though very soon. So
Yeah. So I'm still up in New York. And when I connect with Jonathan for our coaching calls, he's like sitting on the patio with the sunrise coming up behind him. He's like just chill, big
not
old guest
true.
room that he's in. It's like, so anyway, I'm really happy for you. So,
Thank
Jonathan,
you.
hey, help me here a little bit. In the beginning of each show, I usually do a quote for the day. And
Yes.
today's quote is: cynicism is fear posing as confidence. Cynicism is fear posing as confidence.
Hmm. I
What's
am
what,
I'm a very cynic. I'm a very cynical person of myself sometimes. Um, and I definitely, what is it? What's the last part is
it
fear.
poses as confidence. It looks like confidence, but it's really not. It's fear.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'd
Do
say,
we know
hey, go ahead.
do we know who said that? Who
I
said that?
don't. I don't have the quote. But look, if you're cynical and you're proud of it and you try to defend it, you ain't fooling nobody.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
it's
right.
fear.
Yes.
Face it, admit it. You're putting on a show. You think you've got your confidence, in fact, but at the end of the day, there's some fear there. So
Yeah.
let's get done with cynicism. It's not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah,
Root it
that's
out of
right.
your life. Okay.
Done.
All right. So, hey, today's episode, if you haven't figured this out already, this show is going to be fairly random. Okay. And because one of the areas that Jonathan and I share is a real difficulty in focusing. And so we have to work at that. And that's one
That's
of the
right.
things that, I coach and I share some insights, and he helps me sometimes as well. And we actually check in with each other for some accountability items just to make sure we're
Yeah.
moving forward. Also, I've used the word coach a couple times. Some people listening to the show, there is a very strict definition of non-directive coaching, which is very, you know, I don't talk about myself. It's all about Jonathan. I'm going to only ask questions and give observations. That is not what we're going to be doing today. We might be doing a little bit of the kind of sample coaching, but some of this is just sharing insights and wisdom and encouraging each other. We both like to encourage each other.
Yes.
So John,
Yeah.
hey, what's one thing people need to know about encouragers?
Is that encouragers need encouragement.
You know it. You know it. How's that play out in your life?
Well, I definitely probably through prayer and the word for me, just reminding myself who I am, and then when I'm with people who are going after the same thing as I am, that's huge for me. And in particular, as you already touched on, this daily routine and creating these new habits that I am so or was self-defeating. Um, with, or I would give up real easy. I tend to do that.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
having someone you're literally shooting that email to you every day, that's huge encouragement because it's totally attainable. And the fact that I have someone else who cares, I think that's important as well to know. Not to mention the support. Thankfully, I have family and friends who actually like me and love me. And that's
It's
it's pretty
good. Good if
amazing,
they
Pete.
like you.
Pretty amazing. I mean, especially you. So I'm just thankful.
It's because I think sometimes I think if you meet somebody who's naturally encouraging, and you're like, wow, they're so positive, and man, they gave me these insights, and they really got their act together. I
Right.
don't think that. And then what you can wind up thinking is because they're this usually a fountain of
Mm-hmm.
encouragement and positivity that they've got it all together. It's not true.
Right.
If you meet somebody who is an encourager, most likely they need a lot of encouragement as well. So
Yeah, it's
adopt your local encourager
yeah, that's right.
and send them a word of
That's a
encouragement
great idea.
because we thrive off of it and we need it.
Right.
Because
And
yeah.
yeah, I've definitely had a friend who recently said that because, this whole situation that we're all in. I'm with other people, but just reached out and said, I know for me, for them being an introvert and not having, not needing to be around people, just even reaching out to me and saying, how have you been? I know it's been more heavy on you, and we've talked about how I feel things heavy, and even I loved just your introduction, you introducing me to the term epath, right? Is that what it is?
Empath. Actually, I didn't, but we could talk about
Oh,
that.
well, I remember you told me look it up. Um, so yes, I definitely try to carry the weight of the world, which is not my job, but I tend to do that. But yeah,
So
shoot.
if I could launch off of that for a little bit, so let me tell you a little bit more about Jonathan. You all know that I'm a big fan of the Clifton Strengths Assessment. We've talked about it
Oh yeah.
multiple times on the show. Um, so Jonathan and I both struggle with focus and follow through, and like just self discipline. But the thing is, we come at it from very different points of view and
Mm,
different perspectives. My challenge is I have a lot of really strong intellectual talents, and my brain just gets really clogged and crowded, and I overthink things and I second guess myself a lot, and then it can paralyze me. Plus, I see
hmm.
connections, and I'm a really really deep thinker, and I'm like, wow, this is like it's awesome, but how do I turn this into action? Jonathan, on the other hand, is super strong in relational talents. He just can. He's got this like a gift to just sense how people are feeling, and it's really strong. Now, you think that would be awesome, and it is. It's a great talent to have. However, it needs to be managed because he can pick up other people's, if they're in a negative state, he can pick that up and it can almost feel like it's him living it. The word would be so empathetic, or if you've ever heard of someone who is an empath, is they just adopt the feelings of another person, and they're doing it because they want to join with that other person, either to encourage them, sometimes to just join in their suffering because people need that,
Yeah,
and it's the way he loves people. So Jonathan's challenge is those things can be so overwhelming, and he prioritizes people and relationships so much higher than tasks. Like at the end of the day, oh darn, I didn't get anything done today, but
yeah,
you could feel really fulfilled because you had all these meaningful connections with people,
yeah,
right? Where yeah,
yeah,
so it's we come at this from different points of view. So we've really enjoyed our relationship, like
yeah,
sharing tips and tricks and how do you manage this and how do you manage that and what's a different way to look at this.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I love how, yeah, you put it so succinct and just put legs on. Yeah, I love that, just that we can learn about ourselves and that self. I mean, that's such a great tool, this Clifton Strength. So yeah, it's all good. That was so good
yeah.
what you just shared.
Well, Jonathan, maybe if you could talk a little bit more, like how has coaching really helped you?
Yeah. Well, first, my introduction are just I would start in saying that I used to think coaching was not for me. I thought I grew up playing sports. I thought coaches were great, but and that's a totally different thing. But I remember the first time I was introduced to coaching was this guy in Texas, and he was just your typical Texan, guy on a ranch. But he was like, Jonathan, I can be your coach, and we can talk about things. And this is before I'd ever, done counseling, and so till after probably my late 20s started counseling. But your your coaching in particular, I explain it as exposing darkness, and to the light. So, excuse me. Um, Learning how I think just being able to voice my feelings and of whether it's frustration on my progress or um, how do I move past something, or how do I get in these habits? And just the way that you've been able to kind of debunk my beliefs, in a sense, so to free me up. So that's general, but specifically, this this checklist that we have, that maintaining, and this it's maintain a sense of order, because I used to just wake up and think, oh, what am I going to do today? But now I know what I'm going to do in the morning, and then that sets me on a path of, okay, I know I need to do this and this. But I mean, having a morning routine has a total different trajectory, and an evening routine going into my day and going to bed. So
Shutting things down. Yeah. Yeah. That's really powerful. And I've needed it myself. I've likened this. There's this dynamic that I deal with, and John, I think you do too. There was this movie called 50 First Dates.
oh yeah,
And yeah. And who was the
it's
actress again?
Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, I
Drew
think.
Barrymore. Yeah. And she
Yeah,
had this condition that every day she woke up,
yeah, that's right.
she had no memory and she had to start her whole day over.
Yeah,
This is me. Okay. I can have a great day the day before, it'd be super productive. And when I wake up the next morning, it's like, huh, I wonder,
yeah,
I wonder what I'll do for a career today. No, it's
yeah.
not that bad, but it's,
Mine is.
yeah.
Sometimes if
True
you,
confessions. Yeah.
yeah, talk to my friends.
And we get hit with these big what can make it worse is, oh, I want to maximize, life's short, I really want to make
Hmm.
sure I do the most important things. Is my first thing in the morning, I'm not thinking about the most important things, I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about much. But so the power of routine is, hey, if I can do these next four things, like, I don't know what it could be for you. Take a shower, make coffee, get some exercise, whatever it
Right.
is, and just repeat those things and get into a routine on it. You go on autopilot. There's a lot of power in that because you don't have to think it through every time.
That's right.
You already made the decision what you're going to do. It frees
Hmm.
up your brain. And then guess what? You already pounded out four things.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
already making progress. You already can have that feeling progress.
Yeah,
Same thing
that's good.
same thing with shutdown.
Yeah. And I've
You
had
know,
people in my past say, oh, just make your bed or do these. But the thing that with you that's different with coaching is you're like walking with me doing that. And that, I think the way that you set it up is so brilliant, because it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's my own effort that I do. And then I just report on that. And the days where I have, that's been great too, just the correction when I have gone a day or two where I haven't done what I was set out to do. And that discouragement builds and builds. Like, you've just been able to break it off really quick. And that's a game changer too, because prior I would just give up on myself and thinking,
Jonathan,
hey, well, how am I supposed
I
to
don't
do
think
this?
you're alone. I don't think you're alone on that. I think a lot of people set out with good intentions, and they try to establish new habits. And
Hmm.
when they jump the tracks or it doesn't work, and especially if it's like a few days in a row, they can give up and get discouraged. What's been different about it for you this time?
Um, for me, I'm like we talked about, I'm very emotional, so I tend to carry things. But the way that you've explained it is, and I took notes here that I'm looking at. Of course, they're not in order, but these are attainable things that I can do, and it's not based on my feeling, and I can just do these things like get up, brush my teeth, exercise, reading, and so I don't have to think of it as, oh, how I feel, because I'm not going to feel like wanting to do some of this. But having having had success in it in the past, and then just saying, hey, look, great, you messed up, apply grace, and for me, again, as a Christian, thankfully say, you know, I can move on because of, the hope in Christ. And so, um, and the fact that he's like, yeah, given us the tools that we need, to live. So, um, yeah, it's just, I'm not by myself again. So,
Mm.
that's huge. Yeah. I don't know if that even made sense. Sometimes I start talking and I forget the question.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's great. What happens when you get off track, and And that's another power of coaching. It's helpful to have someone else just to check in with if you
Yeah,
do
that's right.
get off track. How can you get back on? And one of the things I know for me, it's usually not about my actions. It's usually my mindset.
Yes.
Something started creeping in there, and it's
Yes.
it's sometimes it's really hard to pull yourself out of a bad mindset and to have
Yeah.
another perspective and say, well, how are you viewing this right now? Is there a different way to look at this?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You've definitely done that, and I did not hit on that, but just okay, great. Let's make adjustments. If you're not going to get up at 5 a.m., let's make an adjustment to say
Hmm.
7 or 6, 6:30, whatever it is. So making those little adjustments. I think someone was talking about Usain Bolt does that, and he makes these little adjustments that make these huge wins. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have been listening to Dynamic Destiny on Transformation Talk Radio. And I have my guest, Jonathan Flores, here. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about dealing with shame that can
mm,
come with a lack of productivity. So, love for you to have you join us. So, don't go away. We're going to be right back. We're back on Dynamic Destiny Radio with Coach Pete, where we unpack your powerful potential. As a reminder, you can catch archived episodes and get lots of free, helpful content and resources at my website, petecoaching.com. Hey, I'm here with my guest, Jonathan Flores, and we're talking about managing productivity and time and all the habits that go into to staying productive. And we're getting kind of honest here
that's
on
right.
things.
We're
Yeah.
getting honest here.
Yeah. And it's just a challenge for some people more than others. Hey, we live in a culture that really rewards consistency, follow through, achievement. And when I say achievement, what I mean by that is the ability to get stuff done every day, cross them off your list, keep moving forward. And for some people, that's a real challenge because we're talented, but we're not talented quite that way on execution and being really, really stable and consistent all the time. My strengths lean a lot more toward ideas, jump starting things, and just making them happen, being strategic, customizing things. I treat everything as like a one-off, and that energizes me, and I'm good at it. But it doesn't lend itself to being consistent every single day, because that gets really boring for me. Jonathan, we talked a little earlier that you're very relationally oriented. So you're not that attuned with task completion. You're
Yeah.
way more in tune with the people that you're around and their state so that you can connect with them and do your best work.
Yeah.
Um, so in some ways I can feel like a square peg, right? In a round hole, as far as like what corporate America says, or even, most of what you see around us in our culture. And that can lead to I've been called ADD, right? Attention deficit disorder. And for a while, I believed that for a long time, actually, almost a couple decades. And the one thing I always had a problem with is the word disorder, because I was
Mm,
like, you know what? I know I'm not broken.
right.
I'm unique, and I don't happen to fit real well with what's expected. School was
Yeah.
a big struggle for me all the time. But if you listen to that too long, it can result in like shame, right?
Yes.
And like, yeah, what say you
Yeah.
about this?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, you know, ADD was just another, I don't know if just another title that I gave myself. I had a lot of shame growing up, even as a Hispanic person. I grew up
Yeah.
in a very like white culture down in Texas in Dallas. I loved it. I have some my best friends are still there, but I just when as a kid you base on how you judge things on how they look. I mean, still do now some, but especially as a kid, I thought I believe that maybe God favored white people just because of the way that I compared our family to other families, and even our church growing up, being a Hispanic church versus the local church there. And so when in junior year of high school, a school was never. I enjoyed making friends in lunchtime, and
Mr.
recess,
Relational here.
yeah. But I mean, science anyway. Don't get me started. But I had a good friend's mom who was a teacher prior, and she was my advocate. And she thought, hey, maybe we should get him tested. And I was tested, and I remember my mom sitting there filling out because they ask, your parents' questions, does he fiddle or does he whatever? And it was as if there was this illumination, and it's supposed to be a good thing, but I just felt so much shame entered at that moment. And I knew already, or I believed already that, oh, I'm not like my friends,
You're
and
less
this
than in some ways.
exactly less than, and
Yeah.
even here now was this other edition, like, yeah, you're less than, like this proves it, and don't even try was the thought that came to mind.
Hmm.
Like, don't even try to study or to be successful because you're not going to be. And nobody told me that, but I felt like that because people around cared for me. But the way that they cared for me, it was like, it was just, I don't know, it made me fold on myself. I wasn't, I was told, oh, you're so creative and you're so this and that. But that didn't matter because I was so latched on to that
To what you
shame
weren't.
and
To what you
defeat.
weren't.
Exactly. Yeah. To
Yeah.
defeat.
Yeah.
And then I think that's why I thrived for sure in church settings, especially like youth group. And I think even now, like with prayer, on Zoom, anything that's communal, I'm there. And that's really powerful for me. And that's been a great place of transformation. But whenever it came to just being by myself, like, hey, it's up to you. You have to pack, you have to plan, or you have to do this. I would just, I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Hey, well, thanks for being vulnerable, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks so much.
those weren't my issues. Mine, I already talked a little bit more. Mine were a little
Right.
different, but that same feeling like, hey, there's something wrong with me. There's something
Right.
broken, or I'll never be able to fill in the blank. And you start to disqualify yourself. And, through coaching, I get trained in coaching techniques on behalf of my clients, but there's a lot you pick up for yourself as well. And
Hmm.
learning to adopt new mindsets and understand, everybody's wired differently. And
Right.
the way I am created by God is awesome.
Yes.
So there, so,
Yeah.
so get out of my
Exactly.
face,
Yeah.
and it might not be the thing that gets rewarded, like on TV or
Sure.
like in certain corporate culture settings, but that doesn't mean there's not a place for me. I'm going to find my place. I might have to look a
Right.
little harder, but what I bring to the party is really powerful,
Literally.
and I'm going to keep developing those things. I'm going to mature in those. I'm going to get them refined, right?
Hmm.
And the areas where I lack, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I used to think that all the time, like, oh, get more discipline, and I'm focusing on my lowest talents, the things that
Right.
I just don't have in me, trying over and over again to try to make those happen. That's a recipe for like total discouragement, because
Right.
you're focusing on your weaknesses, and studies show you can try really hard in the areas where you're weak, and you're only going to get a certain amount of results based on
Hmm.
that, right? They're going to be really limited. If you focus on your strengths instead and try to develop those, you have exponential
Yeah.
opportunities for growth and to make an impact the way you were designed
That's
to make an
right.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need the whole body, right? All
And
different.
that's how you get balance, right? It's from
Yes.
other people. It's not like beating yourself up so that you can
Yes.
become more this and less this. Take your things that are strong and go through the roof with them. But the way
Right.
you can get strong is by partnering with other people.
Yes.
We have other strategies. Sometimes you do have to try harder. Like you and I
Yes.
work together
Yes. That
on
is very
routines and
true.
time management and
Right.
coaching. Like, sorry, you can't write it off and say, "Oh, I'm just not good at it." You got to keep
Yes.
working at it.
That is
But
true.
but
Yes.
we have limited expectations. Even the things that we have on our checklist that we share with one another,
Hmm.
they're basic things. This isn't like
Yes,
this big, huge stretch. I'm going to write a book.
that's
No,
right.
no. It's like, I'm going to get up. I'm
Yeah,
going to make
that's
my
right.
bed.
Yeah, yeah,
But they help. Yeah.
yeah. That's good. I think even you know, that whole I think you hit on it earlier, but these statements like if this, then I will, if or if only, excuse me, if only I was this, then,
Mm,
and I think for me, um, one thing that coaching has helped, instead of playing that narrative or playing that old mindset, I mean, mindset is huge. And again, I was such a cynic or critical of this isn't so there is self-talk. I think that's different than self-help. Although when you talk to yourself, that is
but
helpful,
we
but
could say personal development.
personal
It's
development. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know the language, but the idea of even, in the Psalms, David said, "Bless the Lord, oh my soul." Like he's telling himself, So this morning I didn't want to get up, and I knew in my mind from, what you had said, like just get up and go, and don't don't negotiate, don't negotiate with yourself. It's just like just do it. Like you're gonna be tired, that's great, and then just keep going. So um, yeah, there's so much stuff. I don't know. I'm just thinking about her. I see that little time
So
clock, and I'm like,
Jonathan referenced this is a great book. I talk about it a
that's
lot on
right.
the show. Mindset, highly recommend it to help you get unstuck. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, hey,
Mm,
Jonathan, we got a little bit of time left here.
good.
So I'm. How about we just do some real coaching?
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
All right. So you're listening to Dynamic Destiny Radio with Coach Pete Cafarcio on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm here with my good friend Jonathan Flores. And Jonathan, what would you like to talk about today?
I'd love to talk about planning. I need
Planning.
help planning. In particular, planning a return back to New York. Haven't been there since this started. I was there end of March. Yeah, end of March, and then everything was slowly shutting down, and I think the whole city was on lockdown. Then left because my friend that I was staying with, he got some of the COVID symptoms, so we got out of there, and yeah, so now there's so much information, and I'm having trouble just processing what is it going to look like when I go back, or how do I plan? Okay,
Mm,
here's when I should go back. Just thinking through all of that.
mm. Okay, so we have just a short amount of time here.
Right.
So what specifically would you like to come away with when we're
I
done talking?
guess how I'm going to go about picking the date when I return. How what's that going to look like? With the end goal being like, okay, this is the day that I plan to return.
Hmm. And what do you think's keeping you from having
Fear.
clarity on that?
I
Oh,
mean, just
really?
fear. Yes, fear of, is it going to be too much again? Because I remember it was so heavy when I was there, um, and then just this lie of, oh, if I go, then the Lord's like gonna like forget about me or something, or I should go to visit my family in Texas before I go back to New York. So that's another factor. Or like, why don't you just stay here because there's no rush to leave here? But um, yeah,
Well, it sounds like there's a lot going on in your mind that are all
yes.
feeding into this. Yeah, out of all those things you mentioned, what's the one that's really standing out the most to
Fear, because I've dealt with that during this time more so than ever, and just the empath, this carrying these extra burdens that I don't need to. I remember I was running once down on the West Side Highway in New York, and I just started crying because I thought, man, so many people are suffering. How are people doing this being at their home? And I literally was thinking about then my family,
this is
and
the
then the whole,
pandemic we're talking about.
Yeah,
Right,
yes,
right,
the
right. Okay.
pandemic. And the Holy Spirit was like, "Hey, I've got this. This is not for you to bear the whole world, and you just need to care for yourself. And don't you know that I'm not surprised by this? This isn't too difficult for me." And I was just focused on all of the suffering and pain without any hope. And then the Holy Spirit brought to light, "Hey, you don't think that I see this? You don't think that I care more even than you do?" And he just put me in my place very
Mm,
quick, and I like stopped crying.
hmm. Well,
Not
Jonathan,
not that crying's bad.
well, not for you. It's not. This is your
Yeah.
language. This is your language of connection.
Yeah.
Um, so, Jonathan, how can you take that learning moment and how could that inform where you're at right now?
Um, well, His grace is sufficient for today, and I know that worrying isn't. God hasn't called me to be a worry person, but warrior. So He's been with me this long, and He's not just going to leave me. So I believe I have a desire to go back sooner than later. Um, and knowing that, hey, it's going to be very difficult, but He's going to be with me. And that's what He tells us. His promise is that He won't ever leave or forsake me. So then, not to put myself in harm's way, but I have a place to go back to. And thankfully, I have, masks and we'll take the precautions needed, but I don't need to fear going back into a place where there's millions of people doing their lives. And not to mention this strengths. Um, Adaptability is one of my top five
Hmm.
um, gifts or strengths. So it's not like it's not like this. I haven't been in a situation where I have to adapt to different way. So I have confidence in that, too, a little bit that I'm
Hmm.
equipped. So yeah,
So, so Jonathan, one of the things I heard when you were telling your story, it sounds like the heart of when you were in that running moment, that memory and that experience there. It sounds like the heart of that was you were taking on responsibility that really wasn't meant for you.
yeah, yes,
Okay. And so, can you
yeah,
fast
that's
forward
huge.
into the
Yes, yeah, you're
future?
right. So yes, so my responsibility isn't necessarily my family. Um, and I don't have any kids. I'm not married, so my responsibility is for myself right now. Um, and that's where prayer, I can pray for all these concerns. There's a lot of concerns. My responsibilities are what I've signed up for different things to do, like work and other volunteer responsibilities. But yeah, my parents are older, and he's been with them this whole time. And even my brother assured me, "Hey, look, they have made it this far. You being here or not being here won't, you know, it'd be great for them to see you, but don't feel like you need to come down here and rescue us or something, or I don't know, help them."
Well, so again, this is an outside listener, me as a coach right now, kind of seeing actually the same thing repeated. One was when you're time with God, when you're running, and also what your brother just said.
Yeah,
Your super strong talent as empathy, right? And also you have includer, you have connectedness, you have all these things. You identify with people's emotional state, and but both in your prayer time and your brother were telling you, but you don't have to be a rescuer. You don't have to
yeah,
take the weight of that. You can identify with them, but you don't have to take the weight
right.
of their suffering onto yourself. And this is not for anybody else who happens to have this strength. This is it requires some maturity
Yeah,
to really flow well with that talent, because that is one of the blind spots that you can fall into.
right.
Is you got to understand boundaries and limits of
Hmm.
what you're. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of boundaries, I've been reading or rereading that book called Boundaries,
Hmm.
by I think it's, do you know his name?
Henry Cloud.
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Which is totally helpful. And to your point, yes, maturity of saying, hey, I can't, I don't have all the wisdom. I don't have like ultimate resources or ultimate, yeah, I mean, so, but who does? You know, God does. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Okay. So, Jonathan, how can you take some of these learning points right now?
Oh,
And let's
yeah.
take it right back to your core question, your core issue, which is about planning. Um, and you said fear was your biggest obstacle. How
Hmm.
can you apply what you've been learning like right now to your current situation?
Um, I would say that this fear comes from making the wrong decision. Um, and if I'm just going by how I feel emotionally, then like I wouldn't be able to sit still because I don't want to be with this person in the hospital or this family member or whatever it is. So that's not realistic. But I do believe that the Lord has called me to that city. And I heard someone say the city doesn't necessarily need me, but I need the city.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that also someone told me, gave me a word that um, do what's best for my relationship um, with the Father, with God, versus where do I go and when. So as
Hmm.
we were speaking, I had the thought, I'm free to go and I'm free to stay, and I've not allowed myself to have that thought, or even like sat to listen. So um, I just need to pick a date to go and go and know that I won't know, or I won't have the grace, future grace, right? But when I go there, then I believe that the Lord will meet whatever fear that comes, or temptation to fear, and all that heaviness. So um, yeah, and the reality. I mean, there's been 2 months that have gone by, and I have some friends that are there that are like praying around the city that felt called to go back, and people that have been there the whole time who have, said, hey, the weather has changed since March, and there is some good, amidst the bad there. So,
Wow. Well, Jonathan, I mean, I'm hearing or seeing like kind of like some light bulbs going off for you.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm experiencing that too. And even the breathing, like, I forgot, like, man, this takes work. So it's good.
Okay. So, a couple things I heard were, hey, you know what? It's not about having a strict plan. It's about I have the
Yeah.
freedom to make my decisions. So does that
Yeah.
help you then on
Yeah,
your planning?
yes. I mean, in my mind, I had the 15th where I was going to make a decision whether or not to go back to Texas. And then when I shared with you earlier, my grandmother, she's 101, Celia Martinez, down in San Antonio. She's in the hospital right now, but we're hopeful for her. But she is, and our family, suffering, watching her suffer, and being there by herself. But
She's in the hospital with COVID.
with COVID, yes, she
Oh
was
man.
tested. Yeah, she was diagnosed, I think, 2 days ago. So, my parents are quarantined. So there's, the option to go to Dallas doesn't make sense right now, or to Texas. So, um, I'm thinking in my mind this time next week, I'll be in New York. So,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Well,
yeah.
hey. So how was this?
um, I mean, an adventure, and it's empowering because I just grew up thinking, oh, well, I don't know, someone else will decide because I'm an idiot, or I can't do these things, so someone else needs to tell me what to do. But just empowering, knowing that, hey, you have information and knowledge, and not to mention access to the one who has ultimate wisdom and knowledge. So just ask, and processing it with you is so nice, because you care, and because you don't feed me. You just lead me. Like you pull it
Ooh,
out of me.
ooh, I
So
like that.
that's
Don't
really good.
don't feed me,
Yeah,
lead me.
yeah, yeah,
Good. Well,
yeah,
that's the power of coaching. That's
yeah.
actually
It's
non-directive coaching, it's called.
okay.
And
Yeah.
but see, now you own your decision
Yes.
versus if I just try to give you advice, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's what Pete said, and then my other friend said this, and somebody else said
Exactly.
this, and you still be just in the same place of confusion. Now,
Right.
I'm going to give you bookend this on the other side.
Sure.
I know you, and we coach on a regular basis. The chances are fairly high that new fresh doubts are going to come
Sure.
after after right now before you head back up. How do you think when those come, how will you handle those?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that um, listening, there's a difference between listening and dwelling on them. So I can hear that thought I've been learning and I can let it pass, but don't give it as much weight. So just like someone's walking by, that
Hmm.
thought can talk. I can let it
I
come and
like that. I'm going to steal
yeah.
that and use that with some other clients.
Well, yeah, that's good. I heard that from maybe Dr. Caroline Leaf
Oh,
or
okay. Oh, okay.
somebody. They're
Cool.
talking about that idea with anxiety or that feeling. But yeah, I think just not giving it power, right? Um,
Yeah.
so that's huge. And already in my self, I'm feeling okay. I'm ready to, um, yeah, for the next step. Yeah,
Okay. And one of the things I do with my clients is I make myself available between sessions. If this was like a little mini session, but if you get
right.
stuck, you can always text,
Yeah,
call. Well, I won't be able to give you a long period of time, but you can always just check in.
yeah, that's right.
So yeah, expect, because you are so relational, you're still, your grandma's situation is, dude, that's tough. I'm
Yes,
sorry. I'm
yeah,
really sorry to hear that. And
yeah.
it's affecting
Thanks.
your whole family. Your parents are on
Yeah,
quarantine lockdown.
right.
You can't be with them. You're super relational. You want to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that'll tug at you, just
Yeah,
realistically.
right.
Right. But, you have made a decision. It sounds like
Yes,
you have a plan. You've got freedom on how you're going to execute on that plan.
yeah,
So as new information comes, you can watch it, but you
yeah.
don't have
That's
to
right.
jump. Okay.
Yeah, and definitely text you when the thought comes.
Sure, if you
Yeah,
want, if you need to. I mean, a lot of this
even
you
just
can
to
process
release it,
yourself.
to let it out. Yeah, but just say,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
thought. Yeah.
Well, so one thing I always ask is, Jonathan, what was your most valuable point in the conversation today?
The freedom aspect that I am
Mm,
free to go or free to stay. That's huge.
that's awesome. That's
Can't
awesome.
mess up.
Well, as we wind down, I have a favor to ask of my listeners.
Yes.
If you benefit from the show, could you please share this with other people? Let them know that the show exists. Like it on the social media platforms. If you're listening on the podcast, rate this podcast, because that helps these media platforms know that this is valuable information, and then they're going to promote it. Jonathan's big on Instagram, so after we get this out there, that would be great if you could promote it. Hey, the quote for the day again was, cynicism is fear posing as confidence.
Hmm.
Cynicism is fear posing as confidence. So don't let that poser in your life.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Hey, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Dynamic Destiny Radio. I had a wonderful time today, and I hope you did too. I
Yeah.
especially want to thank our guest, Jonathan Flores,
Hey,
for
my honor.
joining us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
We'll have to have you back sometime.
Yeah, come on. Thanks to the producer man as
And
well.
you could do it, you could be the hand model.
That's right. Yeah. Here's Pete.
or maybe do some of your stand-up comedy. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Voiceover. Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah. So Jonathan, thanks for being vulnerable. You were really upfront and honest, and thanks for processing life with us.
Yeah.
Everyone else, please join me every other Wednesday at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, or 9 a.m. Pacific time. And I just want to give you a reminder as we're closing out the show. You really are God's gift to the world. He gave you to the world. So the rest of us, we need you to be the best version of you that you can be. you're our gift. So, you know, you got to have an impact on us. So we want you to be the best. That's what this show is all about. Wish you all the best. God bless you.
Thank you.
And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pete.